Hello and welcome to HyperDog Digital. It is that time to take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. Now, if you did see my unboxing, you know that I did get not just the S8 Plus, but the S8. And unfortunately, the wife got the S8, and I am unable to pry that from her hands at this point. So we're just going to review over the S8 Plus, which really is giving you a review of the S8 as well, as they are more or less exactly the same, save for the slight size difference that you have between the S8 and the S8 Plus. So let's go ahead and just get started, and we'll just take a look at what you have with the physicalities here of the phone. You have, of course, your power button on one side here. You have your volume button, and this is the infamous Bixby button, which is a matter of contention right now on who likes it, who doesn't, trying to change it and have it do a different function. We'll get into that a little bit later. On the top, you have your SIM card slot right there. You can also put in an SD card. And then the bottom is your headphone jack, your USB Type-C, and your speakers, and of course, you know, your mic's on either end there. On the back, you have the fingerprint reader, the camera, and the heart rate sensor. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into what is probably one of the biggest things talked about with this guy, and that is the infamous fingerprint reader and moving it all the way to the top versus before it was down here on the bottom. And they, of course, have gotten rid of that button on the front, and they've put the fingerprint reader on the back. I was not a huge fan of this when I saw the renderings, when I saw the pictures that came out. I just thought it was a bad place to put it. I've had a Nexus 6P for a while and had the fingerprint reader right here, and I thought that was just a perfect spot for it. I didn't think I'd ever get used to it being up here. But I tell you what, after just a couple of days, I didn't have any problems finding the fingerprint reader when I needed to. I didn't feel like I had to turn it over all the time to get to it, or to get to the heart rate sensor either, for that matter. And anyone who's really had, you know, an S7 or an S6 where the fingerprint reader, or the heart rate sensor was on there, you know, you already know where that is, and you're kind of used to already putting your finger up there to get that reading. So it shouldn't be that much of a stretch to put your finger up here to hit the fingerprint sensor either. And I'll tell you, once you get a case on there, if you do like cases, it actually, in most cases, seems to make it that much easier, because the case will give you a little bit of an opening here, so it's a lot easier to find what you're looking for if you still have problems with it. Now, of course, again, back to them moving the button off the front, you have this huge screen on here now. It's almost, you know, there's the curved screen, so it's the infinity screen is what they're calling it now, and very small bezels at the top and the bottom. I really wish that they somehow would have been able to put a speaker on the front, because the speaker for this guy is on the bottom, and it's not bad. But again, coming from something like a Nexus 6P where the speakers are on the front, or if you have an HTC phone where the speakers are on the front, it's really that much better. Just the sound is definitely better for the most part when those speakers are on the front. Again, it's not bad. Most cell phones nowadays anyways only have the speaker on the bottom anyways. Unfortunately, it's not stereo. There's not one on either side here. But it still sounds good. I don't really have any major issues with it. I would like to have been on the front, or to have two, but I've never been a huge audiophile when it comes to phones. Most of the time I'm connecting up a Bluetooth speaker or putting headphones on if I'm really worried about listening to music or a movie or something like that anyways. So there's the basics of the phone itself, just the physical setup of it. Let's move on and talk a little bit about performance. Okay, well, I know I said we'd talk about performance here after the break, but quickly before we get into that, I wanted to touch on the accessories that did come with the phone itself. And as you can see here, you get a couple of adapters. You have a USB to USB Type-C adapter, very handy. and then you have a micro USB to USB Type-C that you can use if you want to try and use maybe a different charging cable, an old charging cable that you have for a different phone. I don't think they necessarily recommend that, but you can certainly do it. But that is available as well. And then of course you get these really nice AKG headphones. Again, I'm not an audiophile, but these sound really good. I've really enjoyed listening to these, and of course they do have the volume buttons on here, and it is a speaker, so you can take calls with this as well. The good thing about these as well that I like is that they've got a very narrow form factor for the jack. So if you have a lot of the cases that are out there don't give you a lot of space around the headphone jack or headphone port, so something that is very small like this is definitely very helpful, and makes it very usable. But these are great headphones. I like the shape of them. They stay in my ears real good. Although I haven't used them a whole lot. I have a pair of wireless headphones that I tend to gravitate towards a little more than the wired ones. And then of course you also get a few different earbud sizes that you can swap out if you don't like the ones that are currently on those headphones. So moving on to the phone itself and performance. Let's first talk about the battery. The battery on this for me has been absolutely phenomenal. I can take it to work and do anywhere from medium to heavy amount of use, and still have plenty of juice left by the end of the day. On average, I get up around 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning most days, and I take it to work. I use it for phone calls, I use it for playing games, I use it for taking notes, watching videos, whatever, just getting text messages, surfing the internet, blah blah blah, all that stuff. And when I get home at night, I still have roughly about 50 to 40% left, just depending on, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And coming from the phone I had previously, where by the time I got home I needed to put it on the charger by 5 o'clock, is when I usually get home, I immediately have to put it on the charger. This has been a really great upgrade for me as far as battery life goes. I have no complaints at all with how good the battery has been on this, and it really surprised me. I didn't think the battery size that they put in this guy was really going to be all that great, based on some of the other larger phones I've had, and the similar size batteries. I was sure I was going to have a little bit of a disappointment with the battery life, but it hasn't been that way. It's been an absolute dream. I really love the battery life on this guy. So performance wise, it should come as no surprise. The flagship Samsung Galaxy S8 runs very smooth. I've had no problems. I haven't had any lagging or anything like that. I've been able to run several high performance games on here and haven't had any problems. Been able to turn up the graphics really high. It's just ran really great for me. Fingerprint reader has not been an issue. And the screen itself, I know there's been some problems that have been reported with the screen having a red tint. Fortunately, I haven't had any problems like that. The screen has been beautiful for me, and I did go ahead and crank it up. If you go in here to the settings and display, I am on WQHD mode for resolution instead of full high definition. And the battery's still awesome, and it just looks amazing. Playing games look great, and the other thing that I really like about this, especially when using it with the Gear VR or any VR for that matter, my previous phone would heat up a lot. This guy has had barely, you can barely tell it's heating up at all. I don't know if it's what they've done with it. I'm sure it's the chipset that's working a little bit better, but I've had no heat issues at all with this. It has just been fantastic as far as that goes as well. The Wi-Fi seems to work really good. I haven't had any problems with Wi-Fi dropping off. Bluetooth has been great as well. Wireless charging, I know there were some people who had complaints about the wireless charging not working very well. I haven't had any problems with that. I have an aftermarket kind of third-party wireless charger, and it even works fantastic with that. I haven't had any problems with it keeping a charge or not being charged up in the morning or anything like that. Alright, so let's take a minute to talk real quick about the camera on this. Cameras have become very important in phones nowadays, so of course there's no surprise that the flagship phone for Samsung would have an awesome camera on it, and it does. It certainly ranks right up there with the Pixels and the iPhones that are out there, the latest iPhones. It's a great camera. I've taken some. I really like the way the pictures have come out. They've got great colors. They definitely pop, and it's definitely a step up from anything that I've had so far. Going over the specs for the camera, the rear is a dual pixel, 12 megapixel. It has optical image stabilization. The front is an 8 megapixel with wide selfie option. Now the rear has a few different modes in it. There's a Pro mode, which is basically a manual camera mode. So if you want to control your focus and aperture and those kind of things, you can use that mode. There's a panorama, slow motion, hyperlapse, and the food mode, and save as raw file mode. I really can't believe that we're in a day and age where we need to have a food mode, but I guess that's the thing now. And I'll step off of my old man lawn here and just say whatever you kids want to do, go ahead. Now both of them also have several other options as far as virtual shot, motion photos, stickers, various different filters, and a whole bunch of other options. So there's certainly no shortage of things that you can do with this camera, and like I said, the pictures I've taken have come out great. I'm certainly not a professional photographer, but it's definitely better than any phone I've had so far, and it's very easy to use. In going through the different modes, I haven't had any problems or issues trying to figure out how to use hyperlapse or panorama or anything like that, although most people who've had a phone here in the last couple of years is probably used to those as well. So you certainly won't be disappointed with the camera here from on the S8 or the S8 Plus. So if you're looking for a camera or a phone with a good camera, this is definitely one to take a look at. Along with the camera, you also, of course, can take videos with this. This does support 4K video recording at 30 frames per second, 1080p HD video recording, 720p HD video recording, both at 30 frames per second there. Digital zoom 8 times, slow motion video support for 720 at 240 frames per second, so on and so forth. So definitely the video camera right up there. It's you're gonna be able to take some pretty good videos. Slow motion has been really the most fun for me, and I think anybody with kids is gonna have a good time doing the hyperlapse or the slow motion. It's always something neat to see, and your kids always seem to get a kick out of it. At least mine do. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the software. This is running Android 7. Actually, let's see here. It's Android 7. Not 7.1 or 7.12 or anything like that yet, but I'm sure it'll get there soon enough. And of course, anybody who's had a Samsung phone knows that they like to run their skin of Android called TouchWiz. And depending on who you talk to, it has gotten better or worse over the years. I tend to think it's gotten much better. It's not quite as bloated. Doesn't seem to really slow the phone down as much as it used to, if at all anymore. Myself, I do like vanilla Android, just the running stock Android myself. I can't do that right now with this phone, so I'm sticking with TouchWiz because I have to. But it's not really a huge issue. There's not much that's really all that different. You still have your hot buttons up here, and you're able to reply to emails when they show up in your notifications, and you have all the same functions for the most part that you have with your notifications and everything. There's a few differences here and there, and I'm not really going to go into all the intricacies. I think most people have heard enough about it, or that if they've had a Samsung phone recently, then you're pretty much familiar with some of the big differences. Now with there are a few things that do drive me a little bit crazy that I wish I could change. One of them is the folders on here. I really like the way stock Android will work, where it'll just open up a small portion and not block out the whole screen, if you just have a couple icons in there. I also like the way stock Android will handle if you just hold on an icon, where it will give you options for that specific icon versus just giving you these do you want to remove it or uninstall it or whatnot. Not a big issue. It's just something that kind of drives me a little bit crazy that I wish I could change, and I probably could if I wanted to put on a different launcher or something like that, but I'm really trying to just stick with what's on here and try it out that way. Other than that, I really thought I was going to hate how the app drawer button is gone, and you just do the flip up gesture to get into it. But I've actually come to love that. It seems so much easier to get in, and it doesn't leaves another spot open for me to put another icon down there on the bottom. So I'm actually really liking that function. I haven't had a chance to play with much of the other gestures, but that one definitely has taken a hold of me right there. So overall, I'm rather impressed with the TouchWiz interface and what they've been able to do with it recently. It is definitely a lot better than when it was first introduced. It's got a lot of nice features in it. Some maybe a little too many bells and whistles for some people, but I haven't completely explored every nook and cranny of it. There seems to be something new that I find every day. Some I could do without, some that I really like. I've actually come to use the app's Edge quite a bit, and using the Smart Select actually quite a bit as well, for taking screenshots and whatnot. I'm rather impressed with how well it works now. I've had some of the older Samsung phones when they first came out, and TouchWiz was a nightmare. Well, and look, it holds up to falls pretty well. So yeah, I definitely don't have any problems with the software on here. Again, if I had a choice, I'd always go with stock Android myself, but it's nice to broaden the mind and try something new once in a while, and I don't have any problems and really any major complaints outside of cosmetic changes for the TouchWiz here on the Samsung Galaxy S8s. Alright, so there you go. That is my review of the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus, and indirectly the Samsung Galaxy S8. Really, I had a great time with this phone. It is my daily driver right now. It probably will be for quite a while to come. If I had one complaint about the phone, it would I'd probably go back to the speaker. Being used to the speakers on the front of the phone, I wish that they had done something like that with this guy, or at least had a second speaker on the bottom to give you more of a stereo sound. But really, it's not anything that's going to stop me from just absolutely loving this phone. I haven't had any of the problems that have been reported as far as the wireless charging or the red tint on the screen. Mine has been perfectly fine. I know they've got some fixes going out, at least for the red tint. That was a software update, but the screen looks great. The camera takes fantastic pictures. The battery life is absolutely amazing. It looks nice, as you'd expect from a Samsung phone, and really I don't have anything too negative to say about it. The speaker would be the only thing that I think really is the only downer on the phone for me. So if you are looking at getting a new phone, and you've read some of the stuff about the Note 7 and the batteries exploding or anything like that, definitely put some of that aside and take a chance and take a look at the new S8 and S8 Pluses. I think they're phenomenal phones, and you'll definitely won't be disappointed with them. Thanks again for joining us here at HyperDog Digital, and we'll see you next time.